Hello, my dear friends. Welcome you once again in today's session on the German Mentor. I am Jatinder Singh. As I just told you earlier that I am going to explain you common 25 German verbs for the beginners. In fact, everyone can use these verbs in daily life, in daily conversation, in the examinations, and I'll explain you one by one with their examples, their meanings. Okay. So let's start today's session 25 essential German verbs for beginners and for everyone. Okay, we start with the very first one, Nummer eins, brauchen. It means to need, right? So this is a very common and simple verb, brauchen. Zum Beispiel, ich brauche mehr Zeit, das Projekt zu beenden. So I have completed this phrase, this sentence in two separate clauses with su plus infinitive grammar structure. So you can also make a sentence in two clauses or in the single sentence, your wish, okay? But you only need to understand the meaning of these verbs. So that was the first example. Nummer zwei. Brauchst du Hilfe beim Umzug? Do you need help with the move? So the English phrases I have just written for your reference, so you can read these phrases side by side. Okay. So what I'm going to explain you only the verbs, their meaning and examples. So that was number one. Nummer eins, brauchen, which means to need. Now we see the next one. Nummer zwei, entscheiden. It means to decide. Zum Beispiel, ich kann mich nicht entscheiden, welches Auto ich kaufen soll. So I have also created this example in two different clauses, and you know that in the Nebensatz the conjugated verb goes at the extreme end. So it depends on you how you create a sentence or use a sentence in daily conversation. Noch ein anderes Beispiel, sie hat sich für ein Studium in Berlin entschieden. So I have used here the participle perfect for the verb entscheiden. You can also make the sentence either in the present form or in the perfect form. So that depends on the situation. So these two examples belongs to the second verb entscheiden, which means to decide. Nummer drei, versuchen. It means to try out, to try something. Zum Beispiel, ich habe versucht, dich anzurufen. So same thing I have done in this sentence as well. The main clause and the subordinate clause with the su plus infinitive structure. Versuch doch positiv zu denken. So these two easy examples just to understand the third verb versuchen, which means to try. You just only need to understand the verbs, their meanings, and the sentences you can also make from your end. Okay, either you make the sentence in a single phrase or in the Hauptsatz, in the Nebensatz structure. That depends. Nummer vier, erklären. It means to explain. It is also a very common verb in the daily usage. Kannst du mir das bitte noch einmal erklären? So I have used here a modal verb. In modal verb, you know that the second verb goes at the extreme end in the infinitive form. Okay. Noch ein anderes Beispiel. Der Lehrer erklärt die Grammatik sehr gut. So this was another example for the verb erklären, which means to explain. That was number four. The next one, Nummer 5, verlieren. It means to lose. Ich habe meinen Schlüssel verloren. So I have used the participle perfect form of the verb verlieren in this example. Another example, Sie haben das Spiel knapp verloren. They narrowly lost the game. So these two sentences I have created in the participle perfect form. That was number 5, Nummer 5. The next one, Nummer 6, bedeuten, to mean. So this is also a very common verb. German people use this verb very oftenly. Zum Beispiel, was bedeutet dieses Wort auf Englisch? So I have used this sentence in the W family quotient, W-Fragen. Was bedeutet dieses Wort auf Englisch? Das bedeutet mir sehr viel. So this is just a simple statement from my side. Das bedeutet mir sehr viel. The next one, Nummer 7, glauben. It means to believe, to think something. So when you have some belief or thinking on some subject, then you can make the phrases in such situations. Ich glaube, dass ehrlich ist. Viele glauben, dass Deutsch schwer ist. In these two sentences, I have used the connector das, which means that, and the conjugated verb goes at the extreme end in the Nebenclause, in the subordinate clause. I mean, you know that. So that was about glauben verb, which means to believe. The next one, Nummer 8, erleben, it means to experience something. Wir haben im Urlaub viel erlebt. So I have made this sentence in participle perfect form. Erleben changes to erlebt because I have used here helping verb haben, which got conjugated with the subject wir. Hat einen Kulturschock erlebt. He experienced culture shock. So whenever you use a participle perfect of a verb, then you have to use their helping verbs as well. Either it can sein or haben. So that depend on the verb itself. So that was number 8, erleben, which means to experience. The next one, Nummer 9, vermissen, to miss something. Ich vermisse meine Familie. The next one, sie vermisst das Leben auf dem Land. So it is also a very common verb, vermissen, in German language, which means to miss. Nummer 10, hoffen, to hope for something. Zum Beispiel, ich hoffe, dass alles gut geht. Wir hoffen auf gutes Wetter. So when you have some hope for something to be happen, then you can use this particular verb, hoffen. For the subjects, you have to conjugate a particular verb as per the subject. So for the conjugation, you must know the rules as well. The next one, Nummer 11, anbieten, to offer. So anbieten is a separable verb. Separable verb means when you have to break the prefix and put it at the end of the sentence. Zum Beispiel, die Firma bietet viele Vorteile an. So an is basically the prefix for the verb bieten. So that combines anbieten. So the beaten verb gets conjugated with the subject die Firma, and an as a prefix goes at the end of the sentence. Kann ich dir etwas zu trinken anbieten? So in modal verb case, you no need to break the prefix. You have to consider the verb as a normal verb and put it at the extreme end as an infinitive verb. When you use a modal verb, I mean, kann ich dir etwas zu trinken anbieten? But in normal scenarios, you have to break the prefix and put it at the end of the phrase. Okay, the next one, Nummer 12, sich kümmern, to take care of. Friends, one more thing, this is a reflexive verb. So all the reflexive verbs get used with their reflexive pronouns, and you must know how to use them as per the subjects. Zum Beispiel, ich kümmere mich die Kinder. So mich is basically the reflexive pronoun for the subject ich. But the main verb gets conjugated with the subject. Ich kümmere mich die Kinder. The next example, wer kümmert sich die Blumen? So for the reflexive verbs, you also have to use the reflexive pronouns of the subjects. So that was number 12. Now we go further and see the next one, Nummer 13, vorstellen. It means to introduce or to imagine something. Zum Beispiel, darf ich dir meinen Freund vorstellen? So I have used here a modal verb dürfen, which I conjugate with the subject ich, and the vorstellen verb goes at the extreme end as a normal verb, okay, as an infinitive verb. Ich kann mir das nicht vorstellen. So I have used here können verb with the second verb vorstellen at the end of the sentence. So that was about vorstellen, Nummer 13, to introduce or to imagine for something. Nummer 14, ausgeben, to spend something. It is the verb which relates to money, to spend the money. Zum Beispiel, gibt zu viel Geld für Kleidung aus. Andere Beispiel, wie viel gibst du im Monat aus? So this particular verb, ausgeben, which means to spend, and it is related with the money. When you spend the money for something, then you have to use this verb. And this is also a separable verb, a trennbaren verb. You have to break the prefix and put it at the end of the sentence, which you can see in these two examples as well. The next one, Nummer 15, verstehen, it means to understand something. Ich verstehe die Aufgabe nicht. So this is a negative sentence. So when you have to negate the whole sentence, the position of nicht will always be at the end of the sentence. Okay, that you must know. Ich verstehe die Aufgabe nicht. Next example, verstehst du, was ich meine? Do you understand what I mean? So the verb verstehen I have used here with the two different subjects. Ich verstehst du. So the conjugation you must know with all the verbs. Now we see the next one, Nummer 16, vergleichen, which means to compare. When you compare two things, two persons with each other. Zum Beispiel, vergleiche die Preise bevor du kaufst. Man kann die beiden Autos nicht vergleichen. So the second sentence I have used here the modal verb können, and vergleichen goes at the end of the sentence in infinitive form. So that was about Nummer 16, vergleichen, which means to compare. The next one, Nummer 17, erkennen, to recognize. Ich habe ihn auf dem Foto kaum erkannt. So I have used this verb in the participle perfect form. So erkennen changes to erkannt, and the haben is the helping verb of erkennen. So the sentence is, ich habe ihn auf dem Foto kaum erkannt. Kannst du das Lied erkennen? So I have used here a können verb and conjugate with the subject to. The next one, Nummer 18, steigen, which means to climb or to rise something. Die Preise steigen jedes Jahr. So this is quite right in every country. So this is the main problem. Die Preise steigen jedes Jahr. Die Arbeitslosigkeit steigt unaufhörlich. Unemployment is rising continuously. So this is also a very common problem among the nations, among the countries. So these two examples belongs to the verb steigen. Now we see the next one, Nummer 19, sinken, which means to fall. Die Temperaturen sinken in der Nacht. The next example, der Kurs der Aktie ist stark gesunken. So I have used the perfect form of the verb sinken, which changes to gesunken, and the helping verb is sein, which gets conjugated with the subject. And now comes the next one, Nummer 20, benutzen, which means to use. Darf ich dein Handy benutzen? When you have to take permission for something, then you have to use a dürfen verb. The next example, Sie benutzen dieses Programm täglich. So these two examples belongs to the verb benutzen, which means to use. The next verb, 21, sich erinnern an. So this is also a reflexive verb, which I just explained you earlier, that for the reflexive verbs, you must know how to use their reflexive pronouns as per the subjects. So Beispiel, ich erinnere mich an deinen Geburtstag. Erinnerst du dich an unseren Urlaub? So mich is the reflexive pronoun for the subject ich. Similarly, dich is for du. So this is also a very important and common verb in the German language. Sich erinnern an. The next one, Nummer 22, sparen, which means to save. Man kann viel Geld durch Angebote sparen. This is quite right. Wir sollten Strom sparen. So this is also a very common suggestion for everyone to save the money by saving the electricity. Now we check the next one, Nummer 23, verbessern, which means to improve. So Beispiel, ich möchte mein Deutsch verbessern. So this particular sentence is for the German learners, and everybody thinks the same situation. I want to improve my German. Ich möchte mein Deutsch verbessern. Die Firma will den Kundenservice verbessern. So wollen verb I have used here. It is one of the modal verb. So it gets conjugated with the subject die Firma, and verbessern verb goes at the end of the sentence in infinitive form. So these two examples I have used with the verb verbessern, which means to improve. Now we check the second last verb of the session, 24, kennen, to know. Generally we get confused with the verb wissen, because wissen is also a verb which means to know. See the example, ich kenne ihn persönlich sehr gut. So I'm talking about for some person. So for the person you have to use the verb kennen. And now we check the second example, kennst du diese Lied? Do you know this song? So this sentence is for a thing. So for the thing and for the person you have to use the verb kennen, which means to know. And now friends, we are coming to the end of the session. We see the last verb, Nummer 25, wissen. It has the same meaning to know, a fact which you just saw in the previous slide. But kennen is used for the person and for the thing, but wissen we have to use when we have to say something about a fact. How? Weißt du, wie spät es ist? And the last example of today's session, niemand weiß es genau. Nobody knows for sure. So when you are talking about some fact, then you have to use the verb wissen. So my dear friend, these were those common 25 German verbs which you must know, which you must use in your daily life. So I have explained you with the help of their meanings and their examples so that you can also recognize them very easily. You can use them very easily in your daily conversation. If you like this content, then give your positive feedback, your comments, and on which particular topic you want a session from my side. Also send me the comments and I will try to make a separate session on these topics as well. Please support the channel, recommend to others, share with others. It is a motivation for me to bring more and more German grammar videos, vocabulary videos, everything which relates to German language for you on this channel so that you can also increase and enhance your German language skills and knowledge. I will meet you in the next video very soon. Take care of yourself. Learn German on the German Mentor. Einen schönen Tag noch. Bleiben Sie gesund und glücklich. Tschüss. Auf Wiedersehen.